Welcome. My name's Simon Bailey. I'm the host this evening for the Business of Indie Games. I'm here with Tobias Sjogren, and he is the Managing Director of White Wolf Entertainment, acquired by Paradox 2.5 years ago. But they are an independent sister company. The company's main business is maximizing the IP for the World of Darkness, an awesome role-playing game and book. I'm going to be talking to Tobias about how to manage and maximize games and transmedia IP across industry partnerships and licensing deals. So World of Darkness is an amazing game. What's the story behind White Wolf Entertainment? Why did Paradox Interactive want to buy you?
The long story, to touch very quickly on that, is two brothers who started this company in Atlanta in the 80s as really a way for them to publish their small role-playing adventures and admiration for role-playing. And 91, they released Vampire the Masquerade. The role-playing game became an instant hit. They grew to a very big team in Atlanta. They got acquired by CCP in 2006. CCP said, let's stop all other licensing, all other development, because at that time there was several computer games. Most famous is the Bloodlines game, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines from Activision. There was, of course, a lot of books publishing, merchandise, and so forth. So CCP said, let's stop with these things and then focus on building a big MMO. And about 2006, this was a really brilliant idea. Then they kept on working on that for about 7 years and realized that would be very hard to get to market. So they basically closed it down because at that point, there was no other business than the MMO, unfortunately, right? Their plan to create interest by not serving the market with any products kind of failed them there. So at the same time, about 3.5, 4 years ago, I was part of the management team at Paradox. I was head of sales and parts of the business development. And some other people and I started looking into how to grow the IP portfolio of Paradox. And the timing was just perfect. We were scouting for IPs. CCP just closed this thing down. So naturally, and we knew the guys over at CCP, so naturally we started talking to them. Took us some time, but during that time, what we realized at Paradox, having gone into that first with a view of let's buy an IP and just do some games on it, we realized it really fitted the whole vision of Paradox, which is much more than just play the games. You have to experience them, dress in the merchandise from it. You want to have the t-shirt, you want to mod the game, you want to stream about it, you want to really engage into your IPs. We realized White Wolf is the perfect company for doing that. And also in that process of building the business plan, we realized doing it as an integrated part of Paradox will be hard because the possibilities of doing computer games based on this IP is much bigger than we can just house inside of Paradox. So that's why we made it an independent sister company to Paradox. So even though we're sharing a bunch of resources in terms of like financing and office and so forth, we're very kind of separated. And I do business with all kinds of other computer games publishers, video games publishers. And we mind our own business, but then some experience we draw in terms of building IP and so forth, we share with them, but also with others in the business. Game industry is a good business in that sense. Pretty much everyone knows each other, and we meet up at these big conferences and share ideas. So that's always how this industry has worked, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I hope that answers the question to some degree.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's an amazing story. It's quite a long and it's always a huge job to establish IP. I've spoken to Sony, about Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, And, you know, sometimes they'll make 2 or 3 games before they make their money back, before they've established the IP enough to make any revenue and get something to stick. And here you're taking on not just video games, but really establishing the brand as a fully transmedia operation, if I get the idea right.
Yeah, and it's thanks to the fact that Paradox is a group of companies these days, rather than just the Paradox Interactive is what you think about the publisher. But they have done a lot of money, and they have the possibilities of investing that in some really cool projects, which, you know, ours is one of them. And I think this is the perfect thing to actually bet on, because it has been a TV series before. There was a TV series made by Aaron Spelling actually in 1996 called Kindred Embraced. It's been computer games. It's been the role-playing game that's been most LARPed. That means live-action role-playing games have been used heavily in this IP. And of course the physical games, tabletop board games and card games and so forth. So picking up this IP is kind of cheating in a way, because so much of that content is already there to do transmedia, to do all these kind of different products on. So it's compared to building a new IP from the ground up. Yeah, we're taking the easy route in a way. On the other hand, it wasn't cheap to acquire this, and certainly we're spending a lot of money to continue to build this up as well. But I think we're betting on a fairly safe horse in that sense.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's been established for a while, so you're building on what's already gone before.
Yeah,
which is a great strategy. What are some of the plans that you've got for this transmedia participatory brand?
It started out as a role-playing game, and that already gives that you really interact not only with the product itself, but with other people while you are enjoying it. And as it became this kind of live-action role-playing game, LARP phenomena very early on, it became this kind of IP where people invested a lot of their time, a lot of their own energy and creative energy. So the participatory factor of it, people really engaging into that IP and contributing to it in different ways, might it be costumes or stories or whatever you might play with it. It's also kind of inherent in this IP. And so, for example, when we're building this up now, we make sure that we not only release new products, like the 5th edition of the tabletop role-playing game, which is kind of our pillar product, to set the tone and the direction forward. We also make sure that the fans are able to interact with it. So we have something called the Storytellers Vault, which is a website where people have done fan fiction or done their own role-playing supplement or whatever it can be, can upload their products and sell it to other fans and earn a buck from it, right? So that's something we launched about 9 months ago now. To really support the community and help them interact with it. So I think this is key, because if you look at the really big entertainment IPs, all of them have people really interacting with it. If you just passively digest it, sure, you can build it on for many years, but compare James Bond with Harry Potter, for example. You don't see a James Bond land, you don't see people cosplay James Bond to the extent that you see them doing Harry Potter characters, right? And there is a Harry Potter land. And I think this is absolutely key in any modern entertainment IP, and especially if you're bordering in different media. You need to allow your fans to interact with you, participate in your product.
That's fascinating what you're doing with the website there. What else are you doing? Are you like licensing out so to other publishers for video games, for TV and stuff, or are you managing a lot of it in-house?
We're a very small little business. White Wolf right now is just an IP development and licensing house. So we have two teams who work constantly next to each other, of course, very integrated. It's the creative part who builds the continued IP, the vision, the stories, and so forth, and document that and share that with our licensees. And then the business development team who find opportunities and make sure that all kinds of different licensees can really make use of our properties in the best possible way. So naturally, we started with developing 5th edition of the tabletop game, and that's where we're cheating, because that's our pillar product, and we're really doing a little bit more in-house with that tabletop game than we will ever do again, because it is like setting our tone. But for all other kinds of different fields of products, physical games, books, publishing, events, there's a lot of like blockbuster LARPs happening right now. It's very much a growing business. The computer games, of course, there's only one officially announced at this point, a werewolf game with Focus Home, a French publisher. But then also we're working with TV and film. And those kind of 4 main areas of entertainment is something we coordinate from White Wolf, but we try to find the right partners to work with those projects for us, because starting this business and then think that you can build all of this in-house, I think it's very, very dangerous, because you need to tap into the absolutely best talent there is out there to be able to do those kind of products that people will pick up and think is fun and progressive and really cool for the current climate. And building that internally is very, very tricky. So that's why we choose that strategy, and it's taking some time, of course, to get this going, because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people to coordinate. But we're just starting to see how things are starting to reach the market and churning out. So the next couple of years will be very, very interesting for us.
What particular expertise do you need in-house to be able to manage those different aspects?
Obviously, an in-depth knowledge about IP. Even I'm the one in the company who has least knowledge about the IP. And when I'm saying the intellectual property of World of Darkness, that's somewhere between 550 and 600 books that have been written in the IP, because you have World of Darkness is the universe, and you have the vampires, the werewolves, the mages, the changeling, etc., etc., etc. So the business developers and the creative team I have, they are very, very knowledgeable about this IP. They've worked with it, been fans for a long time, and that's absolutely key. And then so you need to have that, and then also, of course, be very skilled on what you do in your profession. The business development part, we have people who work with all kinds of licensing and production of different products. What I bring to the table myself is computer games, entertainment industry experience. Our creative director, lead storyteller, Martin Eriksson, he have worked in both TV and interactive media, role-playing and LARPing, and worked as a teacher at a school, a university there in Stockholm and in Sweden. So he brings a lot of that kind of transmedia. How do you connect and tell the stories through different medias with him? So yeah, we managed to find a good team. We're based in Sweden, Stockholm, but we have we're 3 Swedes right now, and the rest is from US or Spain and so forth. So it's quite an international setup we got as well.
How do people approach you to explore ways of collaborating and using your license?
The part that I work with myself the most, computer games, it's a matter of knowing the business. Luckily, so I've taken a lot of that business development part myself, and I've been in the industry, computer games business side for for quite some time. So what I did, I started with was going to GDC just after we acquired this IP, and booked a room there, and then did presentations on presentations and presentations about our IP and what we wanted to do with it, and just invited everyone that I knew in the industry to come and listen, and then had meetings with even more people, and then just been out preaching about this, so spreading the word. And then of course that starts popping up as responses back in the email. I was like, hey, I got this idea, I think we can do this game for you. And somebody talks to their friend who said, hey, you should really think about this. So that's how we've gone about there. Then in the physical games, it's just pretty much the same. There are trade shows. You need to go there. You need to meet with the people. You need to sit down with them. Just be available at these big trade shows, and then follow up in between. That's pretty much it. But sometimes we just get an email in our inbox as well through our website that's just brilliant ideas. So
I'm sure that there's a lot of people coming to you with different ideas on different platforms. What criteria do you use to select a partner? Is it purely based around perhaps on the video game side, around the game idea? Is it the sort of size of the organization that can really get behind the brand that would swing it, or a mixture of the two?
First of all, we have a pretty extensive brand presentation, we call it, that tells what kind of, in broad terms, what we're looking for in terms of how a game should correlate with our IP. That we send out to everyone who wants it. No NDA required. Just we sprinkle that around, and then we follow that up with a little document that says how to pitch to White Wolf. Basically, the criteria that we want to see in a pitch. We got a lot of pitches which are great in the sense of that's a great idea, but how are you actually going to execute that, right? So we try to get people to think about that before they really pitch to us, and then. What happened that I didn't really expect when we started with this, because we only license to computer games publishers. When it comes to computer games or board games, we would, license to the publisher of that board game. And the reason being, when this product is on the market, it's very strange to have a relationship where the publisher is actually selling this and paying for the production of it, having to go through a developer to come to us, let's say. So when we started this out, I thought I need to get publishers really excited about this, because then, they will find a developer. No, it turned out to be the other way around. So developers came to us with a good idea. We realized this is actually quite a good idea. It needs some tweaking though. So the most common process is that we get a good pitch and good idea from a developer. We sit with them everything from a couple of months to 6 to 9 months, and just refine the idea, the game concept. And then during that time, we also think about what publisher might be interested in this kind of game. And then the developer is the ones pitching it, but I help from my side and say, hey, pretty much I know those publishers already, so I tell them something is coming based on our IP. Here's the criteria of how we license. Let me know when you met the developer what you think about it, and let's talk about what we can do about this.
The publisher also knows then that you're behind the developer and behind the IP, which makes the sort of approval process easier. Exactly.
Yeah. Basically, in some cases, we've written a little letter they can bring with them that basically says like, White Wolf approves of this concept already. We just need to figure out the terms, basically. So that worked really well. And I think some developers find it a little bit frustrating sometimes, because we're going back and forth with them a lot. On the other hand, when it finally ends up at the publisher, it tends to go much quicker than other processes. So yeah, and as I worked as an agent myself in the computer games industry for about 7 years, I can help the developers as well with contacts and strategies. How do you present this in the best way to a publisher and so forth. But most of the developers we're working with, they've been in the business for such a long time, so they're very, very capable of that themselves.
When you're sort of going with the developer, to the publisher with those ideas, do you have like an overall strategy for the brand, or is it that the brand is so big with so many different aspects to it, vampires or werewolves, that there can be individual products under the umbrella? So you could do something quick for Switch, or you could do something long-term for Xbox, or you could do, a massively multiplayer universe. But then you would need EA. Is there a global strategy, or are there lots of options open?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because we were thinking a lot about that when we started this. Some IP owners, they license their game out on console to just one publisher, and that's that. And that publisher will do, games based on that IP on PC console. But we realized that we're not coming as we're not Star Wars yet, right? So we don't have that kind of leverage. And also we wanted, our IP is so huge, we have so many different kinds of monsters. So we need different kinds of publishers. And that's the whole idea when we realized, like, we can't integrate this into Paradox, because Paradox cannot handle all of this alone. So very early on, we started saying that we need different publishers to do this. So computer games wise, especially the range of budgets we're working with and the type of products we're working with are quite vast, actually. So it's really about finding the right developer, the right publisher for each specific IP. And we try to, if I would license out Vampire, for example, I would do that for particular platforms per particular genre. Everyone told me that's going to be impossible to do, but it actually worked quite well. So we can have another Vampire game, PC console, another genre with somebody else. That strategy have worked for us. I'm not saying that's the ultimate strategy for all IPs, and it's always simple, but that's how we gone about it, and it worked.
Yeah, I suppose when I look at it, it's a little bit like how Marvel first started out, doing one or two deals at a time, with the obvious things with Spider-Man and the Hulk going first. And then gradually they've done more and more until they've pulled it together into the universe. And then with the latest Infinity Wars stuff, it kind of ties everybody together. Yeah.
The MMO, the World of Darkness MMO, which was meant to do that from CCP, we get a lot of questions still about that. It's like, when is it actually coming, right? You got the source code, like, can't you just publish it? It's not that easy, unfortunately.
Sure.
But we might end up there in the end. But right now, I would really enjoy also just being. So, for example, there's a game coming called the Orpheus device. It's basically together with a company called Earplay, a small publisher that are doing basically choose your own adventure audiobooks. So you talk to your Alexa or your iPhone and tell it what to do, and you hear the story basically as an audiobook.
You get like yes or no choices from that?
Yeah, well, you can also say, so I got the first demo to me at GDC a couple of years ago on this, and I was playing as the generic adventure. And we're sitting at this cafe close to the convention center there, and I was having big headphones on and listened intensely to the story, and was talking to an iPad at the time. And at some point I got a choice, and I said, like, okay, what I want to do was pick up the gun. So I just told the iPad, pick up the gun. It's kind of noisy environment. So I started going louder and louder. Like, pick up the gun, pick up the gun.
You can see where this is going.
People around started to get kind of nervous. So you can actually really, you can really talk to the device and instruct it what to do, but you got some choices, of course. And that's a really, really cool new way of interacting with a computer game that we are able to, so happy to do that. We have so many different IPs. This Orpheus IP is humans who can project into the ghost realm. So it fits perfectly with that kind of device and that kind of story. So, and that's obviously a smaller project, kind of a test shoot in a way for this publisher as well. But they've had great success with other IPs they've done similar things with. So we're super excited to see how that works out. And that's the ability we have with the kind of strategy we implied on games licensing. We can do small test projects. We can do cool and a little bit more progressive projects like this Orpheus device project, and we can do the regular bigger PC console stuff as well.
I mean, it's so interesting. Do you get to express your creativity? How much of your role is coming up with ideas and pursuing and promoting new ideas?
I started out as a programmer in mid-90s, in 96. And at that time, I was very keen on doing games, but I realized very quickly my skills was somewhere else. So I think most of my creativity right now goes into business planning. That's what I think is fun myself. But I think it's an advantage that I've been a nerd myself. I played a lot of games. I really enjoy the kind of entertainment IPs that we're working with. I hope I can contribute. At least I can understand the problems we face as a company and my teammates are facing sometimes. But really, I let the team and the guys who knows the IP so much better than I to really be creative about that. But you know, I can use my experience to help and guide and question and just be a regular asshole sometimes to see if the idea we have is good. So I think that helps in my role as trying to managing this whole adventure in a way. But it's computer games development is really about trying to make sure that your creative team and your business team have the abilities to do their job in the best possible way. If somebody comes and say, "Hey, we did it this way because you just mentioned that you might like black," or whatever it would be, I'm gonna like, don't listen to me. I'm just the CEO. It's like, don't take instructions about that from me. Like, you're crazy. So yeah.
You mentioned the problems there. What sort of problems are you coming across? How are you solving them?
Some of the difficulties of telling stories like this across different medias are kind of unexplored in many ways. I mean, we're basically having a meta plot, a storyline that goes through many years. So we are actively working right now with 2002 up to 2020 about, and it's a lot of coordination, right? So what's the status of this character? Where should he or she be, right? What really happened? Keeping track of all of that is one problem. The other problem is, what do people think is cool these days, right? We want to do stuff that works for not only that we think are cool, but a lot of people around the world think is cool. We are serving not only European and North American market, but very growing interest in Brazil, Russia, South Korea, of course, Australia. So we need to think constantly at how does our IP work with different cultures, and how do we get our ideas across in the best possible way. So yeah, it really helps having a team that is not just based in one culture or from one country or one region or one type of competence, or have worked only with, for example, only with computer games or something like that. We have a multicultural team is really helpful.
There are big consequences for brands if partners get it wrong.
Yeah.
How do you decide whether to partner with someone or not? What are you looking for? What strengths are you looking for before you commit?
Yeah, especially today, I would say it's more dangerous or difficult rather than ever. first of all, the criteria to work with somebody is like, is this person or is this company dedicated? Are they passionate rather around IP? And are they, when we're discussing the stories or the concepts with them, are they coming up with new ideas? Are they only listening to what we ask them to do, right? We rather want to work with somebody that comes back and say, hey, you guys are, you're totally off the rails here. You need to do it this way, right? To come with new creative ideas. So that's kind of the kind of people we're looking for. And turn out at this point, we're working with everything from people who've been in the industry, all kinds of different industries here, not only computer games, been in the industries for a long, long time, and with some just amazing new talents that will become huge names in the future. I'm sure. That adding that kind of talent and that skill to whatever you're doing, if it's a board game or art or writing text, is absolutely key. But the difficulties, I would say, if somebody gets it wrong, makes a bad product in the end, that's about helping as much as we can and be as flexible as we can during the process of changing things. Somebody in the team said that being a licensor is like working with this martial art where you're not really fighting, you're just kind of dodging and adapting all the time.
Yeah.
And that's how we experience our licensing, strategies to be, right? We have a plan, but then we know it's going to change. So that's one part. And if something turns out really bad, being honest about it with the audience as well, and say, hey, we tried, but we didn't succeed, and here's probably why, and we'll try to do it better next time. Be honest and blunt about it. I think that's the only way to communicate with an audience.
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience working with Warner Brothers on Scooby-Doo, LucasArts on Young Indiana Jones, and Disney with High School Musical. And they're really like the three strictest brand holders that I've come across. The route that you go through to get approval is incredibly rigorous, and they have a lot of people dedicated to holding up those brand values.
Yeah,
I can tell that's the kind of core team you're building around the brand, because they know the brand inside out. They love the brand. They're passionate at heart. Sounds like they're fans,
It's true, and I had some experience myself working with IPs or licensors like that, and sometimes it's just a glorious adventure together, and everything works so smoothly. And sometimes it's just like you thought you had something decided, and then it changes, and then it changes again, and then it's impossible, right? So when we started this, and it was only Martin and me in the very beginning, we said from the beginning, how do we fight this? What if White Wolf grows big and we start having this kind of processes that are way too rigid, and or too many people that want to add to it, just making it slow. So
George Lucas had his own rubber stamp, that he would put in everything.
It is tricky as well, because sometimes you kind of need it as well. So we call it added value licensing, that we should always work in a way that adds value to our licensees. So we try to do that all the time. And internally, I hear from time to time, when we do something that might not be perfect, somebody says, well, hey, is this really adding value to our licensee now? Or this discussion we're having right now, or it takes too long time for us to respond, or the kind of documentation that we throw at them, or the lack of documentation, right? So we always try to ask our licensees, like, okay, what can we do for you guys now? Like, what do you need from us? Hopefully that it's a culture that we instill into White Wolf that will, it does work right now, based on the feedback I'm getting from at least some of our licensees. But hopefully it will also really help us in the future when we grow into a much bigger operation and can still focus on really helping our licensees.
It sounds like you give a lot of support to, as you were saying earlier, to developers that come up with ideas, and then the letter of approval for publishers. In addition to sort of introductions and support, do you also directly influence your licensees in the direction of the finance for the products?
Sometimes we had the cases on the computer game side, especially where developers have said, now we have these 3 different publishers. I'm just making an example here, not a super real case here. And they asked me, it's like, who should I work with? What do you think as a licensor? And in pretty much all cases, I've been lucky to be able to say that, well, all of those publishers are totally fine with me. And it's like the important thing here, because I can always make a licensing deal with these guys. But the important thing is that you as a developer are going to work with this publisher for a long time, very intensively. So you need to pick the one that you think is right for you. And it's the same thing with budgets, right? If a developer comes to me and say, hey, we want to do this game, we do believe that we can do a game based on this concept for 2.5 million euros. If I go back and say, well, you know what, I think you should do it 5 million. I've been in development myself, and if you're comfortable with 2.5, 5 million euros won't help you. You might be happy to get it, but it might just be too much for you at the time, right? So I'm really wary about trying to put that kind of metrics on the deals. I rather try them to measure it by the quality, ambition level of the concept, and so forth.
If you put yourself in the shoes of a new indie or a small to mid-sized studio, they've got an awesome product and a potential IP. What advice would you give them around licensing and partnerships, in addition to picking the right person to work with, because you'll be doing it for a long time?
If you're starting up as a new developer right now, and you have this concept that you think this can extend so much broader than only our IP, you got to really think about what qualities in your IP makes it fit. For a while, it was like a given that when you pitched a movie or pitch a computer game, it should come with a comic book deal. And then it's like, wow, then it's Transmedia. No, it's not. It's just like somebody did. In most cases, then it was like a lousy comic book that nobody wanted to buy. It was just a marketing tool. So, and that's kind of worthless in the end. So you need to really think about, if you have something in your IP that really fits, might it be merchandising, might it be a novel, might it be, maybe even TV series kind of format, it needs to resonate, and be able to have the qualities as an IP to create another mean of entertainment that stands on its own. So if somebody comes and say, wow, I saw this TV series, it was really cool, and people go like, well, do you know it actually started as a computer game? And the reaction you would like to hear from people then would be like, oh, I had no idea, but then now I'm going to play that computer game, right? That's the kind of quality you need to look for in the IP, and it's tricky to create that. It usually takes a lot of time. You can't sitting down and trying to create an IP like that from the get-go, just from the start, empty-handed, and it's hard. I have no really good advice on that, how you do that. But role-playing games are one of the good ways of starting, I think, because what you do in a role-playing game is that you define the world, you define the universe, and the rule set within it. And computer games usually do that as well, right? So
some of the very earliest, most successful computer games have come from board games. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons is the most obvious one.
Yeah.
What do you see as the sort of general vision for the future for, the transmedia entertainment and the coming together of these different media?
Yeah, I think it will be the number one factor, I think that is a criteria that you need to have in your IP and your entertainment IP in the future, is the participatory factor. People need to be able to engage with it, because there's so many examples of it. Harry Potter is one, right? One of our event partners to do a big vampire live action role playing game, 3 days in a castle in Poland. They really got started by doing, inspired by Harry Potter magic weekends in this particular castle in Poland, where people go and just basically they play being Harry Potter. But it's not called that. It's called College of Wizardry. I think if they got the license, and obviously they asked, but I think it was just too expensive. If the licensor in that case would have been a little bit more flexible and understood what kind of brand value this would have added, even though, and some cash, maybe not the big cash, it would have helped them to build the IP much bigger. Because when people go there and you play in that universe for 3 days, you get engaged, you get invested. I think the coolest example right now is the Star Wars hotel that Disney is building in Orlando, right? Where you basically will check into the hotel, their staff members or actors or whatever they call their employees there, they will, engage with you as you are a participant, a passenger on this spaceship. Apparently the hotel will not have any windows. It's just going to be big screens. So it feels like you are actually on a spaceship. And you can only stay there for 2 days. You're going to get a mission that you need to react on while you're there. It's just this kind of immersive, family engaging experience.
That's great. I mean, that sounds like, because that involves the whole family, as does the Harry Potter world, also Orlando. But here in London, we have like office buildings where you can go and shoot zombies,
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why Walking Dead is also so successful, right? They really combine the whole zombie craze with some really good characters as well that goes with that, and they've been very, very successful in that genre.
I can see, like, even just from the videos and stuff I've watched on YouTube, the passion that you have for this. And the energy you have for it is what's going to drive it through, I think. Yeah,
and the secret sauce we have in White Wolf, and I'm the Excel guy myself in the end. My team members who've lived with this IP for such a long time. When you have one of the biz devs sitting down with you and they know every aspect of the IP already. Or Martin, when he as a lead storyteller tells you how he envisioned this IP and the story being told, it just resonates with people who wants to do similar cool stuff, and you really get the ideas flowing and cool concepts coming up, right? So it's all about that. I mean, you can't create an entertainment IP without the passion, strong passion.
Do you have any final pieces of advice for indie developers, with regard to licensing and transmedia entertainment?
In the development, so interesting, because I'm old enough to kind of see it popping up, and I helped out with a guy called Patrick Perot early on when he did a game called Crayon Physics, before I think it was even called Indie Games in a way. And he made a fantastic career of that. We just helped them with some business contracts, and being able to from the side see how that business grew based again on passion of creating stuff. It's just been amazing. And I think I'm not really integrated in that business myself, but seeing it from the side and hearing some people being very disappointed with how difficult it is, I can definitely sympathize with that. Creating any kind of music or theater or entertainment of these kinds are difficult, because there's so many talented people who wants to do it out there, and it's not only always fair who gets to be the most popular or actually make a living out of it. But right now, I think what you need to do in any kinds of entertainment is make yourself stand out from the crowd, right? So IP is one of those things. You might take the help of another IP, leverage your creativity on really building around an existing IP and creating something cool and new that people recognize, and you get that kind of first threshold of discovery taken care of. Or when you create your own IP, you really think about it from the long-term perspective. I was part of met with two guys here in Stockholm, Sweden, Mats and Johan, who very early on after they left the university had an idea they called Battlefield. This was 97, 98 or something like that. And we were sitting down and talking with them. They had really strong passion about this whole concept that you should be able to create this game where you were flying and running around and driving cars and so forth. And we were not thinking at that point that we would build a game studio that would have a franchise with many games on PC and consoles, and 10, 15, 20 years later. That's how it turned out to be, but I think it was because of their passion about just making this thing work to begin with that created this foundation that was possible for a lot of other talented people then later to build on top of. And as an indie developer, you do have those building blocks available to you. It might be really hard and might need a lot of tries before you get them right, but think about it as get the foundation right from the beginning, rather than focusing on how high should the building be from the start. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, that's a great a message of hope, actually, and a great message, a great example to use, the battlefield. Thank you so much for your time and joining us today and sharing with us. It's been really insightful, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how the brand develops across the various channels. It's a very exciting opportunity, and I wish you all the best with it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. And really, this industry, computer games industry, is, in my experience, about what goes around comes around. So we help each other and we grow the business together.